Okay, I think we should start first because neither of you have taken a bio module before. So we are going to start with the very basics, which is the cells. Do you have any history of studying the human body or cells before this? If you have, maybe you can just like raise your hand or react in the chat. Like you can choose any of the reactions. Yes, John has studied it before. Okay, John, so this module might be a bit easier. So I guess Jake and Kimpar have not studied. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, so we will just start with that first then. So our first unit is knowing how your body systems are organized. And um, we will start with the very basics, that is the structure of a typical cell. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to label a cell and its structures. You should be able to define what a cell is, what a tissue is, and what an organ is, and what the body system is. The last two parts, I would most likely be teaching them in our next session when we reach to the systems of the body. So let's start with cell. What is a cell? So we all know what walls are made of, right? Walls are made of bricks. And in the same way you see puzzles, different pieces of the puzzle makes the entire picture. But what about humans? What are humans made of? Or what are animals made of? And what are plants made of? All these living things. And that is where the cell comes into the picture. The cell is the basic unit of life for all living things. So all living things are made of cells. The structure might be a bit different and the functions of the different things inside the cell might be different, but overall, all living things are made of cells. And what is the function of a cell? So a cell carries out life processes such as respiration, excretion, growth, and division. These are just some of the functions. Now, a cell itself is good, but what is actually inside the cell that's making all these things possible? That's where organelles come into the picture. Organelles are subcellular structures, meaning structures inside the cell with one or more functions to perform in the cell. So organelles are the structures inside the cell that have different functions and different duties to carry out. So let's have a deeper look. And you see all these arrows here. Right now, you may not know these structures, but at the end of this lesson, you should be able to name them after some practice. Let's start with the outermost layer of the cell. For animal cell, the first layer is the cell membrane. You can see it here. And then for plant cell, the cell membrane would be the second layer. We'll go to the first layer later. So this is the animal cell, and this here is the plant cell. You can see my cursor, right? Okay, good. Okay. So the outer lining of a cell is called the cell membrane, and it is mostly made of phospholipids, which is like proteins and fats. And the function of the cell membrane is to act as the protective coat of the cell. So this is like the guard of the cell. And it separates what's inside the cell from the external environment. So in a way, it's like it's clothes. The cell membrane is the cloth of the cell. And another function that it performs is that it controls what is going inside the cell and what is coming out. So that is point B, regulates movement of substances entering and exiting the cell. And another function is that it allows for exchange of respiratory gases, like what gases can go in, what gas comes out, also nutrients, what nutrients go inside, what comes out, and the waste products, of course. So since it's alive, it does need to secrete things, waste products. So I mentioned that the cell membrane is the first layer in the animal cell, but in the plant cell is the second layer. That's because a plant has another outer layer. It is called the cell wall, which literally the name says it out, a wall. It's like a wall of the cell, and it's the outermost wall, and it is what gives plants its shape. So if you see like humans, for example, if you touch a human, it's not as rigid. We're soft, but plants, they're more rigid. It's because they have cell walls. And the function of the cell wall, again, is to provide the structural support and the rigidity of the plant, so that fixed shape that the plant has. Next, again, just remember these are the organelles. We're slowly going inside the cell. The cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is what is the most of the cell inside. You see all this fluid in the plant cell. I've colored it in yellow here. In animal cell, this blue. This gel-like fluid, it's called cytoplasm. It fills the entire cell here. You see, it's all filled here with this gel-like substance, the cytoplasm. And the function of the cytoplasm is that it allows the organelles, all these different organelles, to operate inside the cell. It houses these organelles. And it's also a medium where all the chemical reactions, the biochemical reactions, and the living processes occurs inside the cell. Next, nucleus. This is like one of the most important organelles that you need to know. This is also the largest organelle in the cell. So if you look under a microscope, you will see this very dense small circle or small dense structure inside the cell, and that's the nucleus. So the nucleus is very, very important because this is where your genetic materials are stored. Even in plants, the plant's genetic materials are stored in the nucleus as well. And it is the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, that's the genetic material that's inside the nucleus. And this is the genetic materials that actually decides what type of characteristics a cell has and what is its function, because there are different types of cells, as we'll see later. And the nucleus is also like the brain of the cell. It controls the different activities inside the cell. Okay, and you just as you think that you've gone deep enough, you realize there's actually more inside. So when we go even deeper inside the nucleus, so again, this is the cell, then we're slowly going in. This is the nucleus for plant here. This is the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, you find an even more denser region, this part. It is called the nucleolus. It's like a baby nucleus inside the nucleus. So this one is very important as well, because this is where ribosomes are made. The synthesis of ribosomes happens here. Now, if you don't know ribosomes, don't worry, we'll get there. But just know that it creates those ribosomes that happens here inside the nucleolus. Okay, there is something special about the plant cell. The plants, you see plants are green, right? It's because they have something inside the cell called the chloroplast. And this chloroplast, again, it's only in plant cells. You won't find it in animals or human cells. The chloroplast is what makes the plants so special that plants can make food just by absorbing sunlight. And this inside the plant cell, this organelle called chloroplast, this is the reason behind that. So what happens is that this chloroplast, this organelle, it captures sunlight, and inside the chloroplast, there is this pigment, this green colored things called chlorophyll. And that chlorophyll is what is responsible for changing light energy into chemical energy, which is basically changing light into nutrients for the plants. Is everyone keeping up so far?
Yes.
Okay, good. Next is the mitochondria. So I would suggest that you can read more about the mitochondria, because there's a saying that it has been passed on from just the female and ancestor. It has a lot of stories behind it, but this is the organelle that other than the history and stories of ancestors coming with it, it is also the organelle that actually gives energy to the cell. It's like the powerhouse of the cell. So it is present in both animal cell and plant cell. Again, it's cylindrical shape organelle, and it has double membrane. So if you see there's like a darker membrane outside, there's another membrane in here inside. So it's double, it has two membranes, basically two layers. And then this is where cellular respiration happens, because animals gain their energy from cellular respiration, right? And this mitochondria in the cell is what is responsible for that energy. And this energy is what, so the energy is released in a form called ATP. I don't think you need to know the long name for it, adenosine triphosphate, but just know that this is the energy that is, this is the form of energy that's released by mitochondria. Just remember that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It is what gives energy to the cell. Next is these stakes of membranes. You see it in both plants and animal cell again. And this is like the Golgi apparatus is like the factories of the cell. So what they do is that they process and they package and they transport molecules like proteins and lipids throughout the cell. So they're like, remember them for being the factory of the cell. Okay, before we go any further, does anyone have any questions? Let me check the chat. Oh, it's all yes, yes. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, next is the endoplasmic reticulum. I will show it in the other. See these purple colored things I've put here in the plant cell, and then these yellow colored things in the animal cell, like very close to the nucleus. These are called endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic, and in short, we will call them ER. So there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum. One is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the other one is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is, again, very extensive network of membranes that have been folded, and they form like interconnected tubes and sacs in the cytoplasm. So if you look carefully, they're somehow still connected to each other, these tubes. And here in animals as well, animal cell. Now there are two different types, again, the rough ones and the smooth ones. So if you zoom into the rough ones, let's zoom in here, you see that the rough ones actually have dots on them. They appear rough under the microscope as well. The smooth one, the name says it out, it's smooth. It doesn't have those dots over it. So again, they're exactly the same thing, but with different functions, because one is rough, there's something else involved. You can see the dots, we'll talk about it again. And the other one is just smooth. So because of this smooth and rough, the different functions are, for the rough endoplasmic reticulum, they transport proteins made by ribosomes throughout the cell. So now you know ribosomes makes proteins, and this rough endoplasmic reticulum, they transport those proteins throughout the cell. And then we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now this one's smooth, they synthesize lipids, and they also carry out detoxification of drugs and metabolic byproducts. Have you heard of detoxification before? If not, that's okay. Basically, they detoxify, meaning that something toxic is made not toxic at all or less toxic. So inside the cell, it has to carry out, the cell has to have a system where it can carry out the functions to keep the insides of the cell safe as well, right? So that is where the smooth endoplasmic reticulum helps out. It any dangerous or toxic substance is made less toxic. So it's detoxified so that it's less harmful to the cell or not harmful at all to the cell. So those chemicals or molecules that are toxic would be detoxified because of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Next, we have vacuoles. So vacuoles are basically fluid-filled sacs. So they're like little sacs filled with fluid. Again, both animal and plant cell have it, but the difference is that in animal cell, it's very small. Yeah, you see, and sometimes in animal cell, we call it vesicles. Yeah, it's just like small sacs. But in plant cell, if you look at plant cell under the microscope, and if you look at the animal cell, you see that the plant cell has a big central vacuole. Yeah. So this vacuole, in mature plants especially, you will notice this. Young plants, it's a bit difficult, but with mature plant cell, you will see this central vacuole. Again, the function in plants is that it stores chemicals such as salts, and it also stores waste materials. And you can say that it is like the storage and waste disposal system for the plant cell. That's where it happens, the storage of waste or chemicals. And again, it also has another function, which is structural support. So it does balance the plant cell somehow. It helps to create that balance inside the cell and supports the structure, the firmness of the structure. Okay, next, ribosomes. This is something that we've been mentioning again and again. Ribosomes, the dots. Ribosomes were found on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. We also saw ribosomes inside near the nucleus. So what actually are ribosomes? So you see these small dots here. I've tried to zoom them in here, but these small dots, both in animal cell and plant cells. See these random dots here and there. So these are actually spherical organelles composed of two subunits. So each ribosome, it has two units that make one ribosome. This is the top part and the lower part, and together we call it a ribosome. And each subunit, so each unit of the ribosome, it has something called the RNA, ribonucleic acid, again related to the genetic materials. And it also has proteins. So the ribosomes, as you can see, they're freely here and there in the cell. You can see the random dots here, here, here. They're freely suspended freely. They don't have a fixed place for them. They're just throughout the cytoplasm. And again, a reminder that it is attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the RER, rough endoplasmic reticulum. And in case you forgot what the rough endoplasmic reticulum is, this one. Where did it go? Oh, here, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, these parts and these parts. Yeah, so the dots here are the ribosomes. Ribosome, the function is important to remember. They are the site, the place where protein synthesis happens. So in simple words, you can also remember these ribosomes, these random dots, as the protein builders of the cell. They build proteins. Okay, next is the lysosome. So the names can be confusing. So try to like make it clear to yourself so you won't confuse ribosome with a lysosome. You can have your own ways, mnemonics for this. The lysosome is spherical sac surrounded by a single membrane, and it contains hydrolytic enzymes. Enzymes, okay, enzymes are proteins, right? That, for example, you have enzymes that break down food in your stomach. Hydrolytic enzymes use water to break down things. So water, hydro from the word water, lysis, lytic is to split. So using water enzymes, And the function of a lysosome is, in simple words, it would be garbage disposal of the cell. So the lysosome is what takes care of the cleanliness of the cell. So for example, if there are extra organelles that are no longer useful or unwanted structures here and there in the cell, the lysosome is what will catch those things and then break it down. So it keeps the cell clean from waste products or unwanted structures, because these organelles also can become like unwanted in the cell sometimes if they stop performing their functions, or if they break down and are just waste lying around in the cell. So the lysosome is what keeps the cell clean, removes any unwanted structures. And again, this digestive compartment in the cell, digestive compartment, because it's a chemical process that happens. It takes the things and it breaks it down, like how we take in food and it's crushed in our stomachs because of the enzymes, it's broken down. So this is like the digestive compartment as well, the lysosome. Okay, next we have centrioles. Centrioles are paired barrel-shaped organelles, and you will only find these in animal cell. So they play a role in organizing microtubules, which microtubules are like the skeleton of the cell. It holds the cell structure together inside the cell. So this yellow structure here, the centrioles, they are responsible for organizing the microtubules throughout the cell. And they also help in determining the location of the nucleus, where the nucleus is, where the lysosome is, where the mitochondria is. So the centriole determines all that. Yeah, where will the lysosome be? Where will the mitochondria be? Where will the ribosomes be? Where will the nucleus be? Okay, so for the cell organelles itself, that was it. And here's a quick tip for if you have tests or exams, it's surely always asked, what's the difference between the plant cell and the animal cell? So you can you can see the difference more generally. In plant cells, they have cell walls. Remember the rigidity of the plants. Plants are very rigid. They have cell walls, but animal cell doesn't have any cell wall. It starts with a cell membrane. That's why animal cells are not as rigid. They're not as hot. Plant cells have a large central vacuole. See? But animal cell, we have small vesicles, but animal cells don't have this large central vacuole. And then another thing, if you need to show more, then animal cells have these centrioles. Remember, they're the one that determine where each of the organelle is going to be, where the nucleus will be, where the lysosome is. Okay, and if you still need more, like if you still need to show more differences between plant cell and animal cell, then again, the chloroplast, and that one is very obvious because plant cells, they carry out photosynthesis. Animal cells, no. Okay, so here are some examples of cells. We have red blood cells. Red blood cells, so the very interesting thing about red blood cells is that they don't have a nucleus. Would anybody like to guess why red blood cells don't have nucleus? Okay, that's okay. So red blood cells, they don't have a nucleus because red blood cells are what carry oxygen throughout the body, right? So to carry oxygen, they need a lot of this hollow space. So because of the absence of the nucleus in the cell, it is able to carry oxygen more efficiently. It can carry more. And as you can see, right, all these cells, this is sperm cell, this is muscle cell, the one that makes muscles, nerve cells that makes up the nervous system. You see, cells don't have to look exactly the same. There are different types of cells, and there are many more than these 4 that I'm showing here. But there's a reason behind every cell structure. For example, the cell of blood, like blood cells, it's this way because it has a reason behind it. So that curiosity that you have should spark there. Oh, why is it that red blood cell is a disc shape? Why is it that it doesn't have a nucleus? So in red blood cells, we know that it's because of them carrying oxygen throughout the body. And then sperm cells, look, it looks very different from the blood cells, and you do see a nucleus inside there in blue. So why is it that the sperm cell has these tails? And then again, the reason behind that is because there will always be a reason behind it. The reason is because they need to swim, like during fertilization, the sperm has to swim to find the egg cell. So the tails help them with the swimming. And then muscle cells. See, why are muscle cells, why do they look like stretchable, like elastics? It's because muscles, we move a lot. Animals, all animals, humans and animals, we move a lot. So muscle cells need to have that ability to contract and to stretch. And then nerve cell, again, nerve cell, it looks very funny. It's like a flower looking cell. So why is it this way? And again, it has its reasons because it has to detect, and then it has to send signals from, detect signals in one side, send to another side. Yeah, so these are all just for your curiosity to see that all cells don't have to look the same, and there is a reason behind them looking different from one another. Okay, I think now that we're done with the cell, we're going to enter the next topic, which is cell tissues and organs. So this would be the next subtopic. You can take a 2 minutes break, 3 minutes bio break. So we will start again at 6:33. And in the meantime, if any of you have any questions, you can ask me first. Anything about the cell or its organelles, you can just ask now. And if you're not comfortable speaking, you can just type it out in the chat. Thank you for the feedback, Cheyenne. Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, so we will take like 1 more minute break or two. We will resume at 6:33. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now, or you can just drink water, go to the washroom now before we resume. In the meantime, I will give a recap of what we studied so far. Okay, here's a 1 minute recap. So we're learning how your body systems are organized. We went through the structure of a typical cell. So we went inside the cell. We learned what a cell is. That is the basic unit of all living things. And we learned the function of the cell. We also went inside the cell to study the different organelles that it contains. We learned about the cell membrane, which is both in plant and animal cell. We learned about cell wall, only found in plant cell. We learned about the cytoplasm, which is the gel-like fluid that holds all the other organelles inside the cell. We learned about the nucleus, which is very important because it holds the genetic materials of the cell and it controls all the cellular activities. And we learned about the nucleolus. So that one is important as well because that's where the ribosome synthesis occurs. And we learned about the chloroplast, which is only in plant cell, and it is the site for photosynthesis, very distinguished from animal cells, because chloroplast contains a pigment called chlorophyll, which turns light energy to chemical energy, and that's how plants gain their nutrients. And we learned about the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, and the energy form that it releases is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And we learned about the Golgi apparatus, which is like the factory of the cell. It processes, packages, and transports molecules like proteins and lipids throughout the cell. And we learned about the rough endoplasmic reticulum and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Again, the difference is that the rough endoplasmic reticulum, it appears rough under the microscope because it has ribosomes on it, attached to it. And its function is to transport proteins, whereas the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it's smooth. It doesn't have any ribosomes attached to it, and it synthesizes lipids. It makes lipids, and also it keeps the cell safe by detoxifying drugs and metabolic byproducts. So any toxic substance in the cell will be made either less toxic or not toxic at all. And that's what you call detoxification. It's not toxic to the cell anymore. And the vacuole, we studied that a mature plant has a very distinct central vacuole. Ribosomes, again, these are the random spherical organelles you find throughout the cytoplasm. And they are the site of protein synthesis made of two subunits. So ribosome, it has two subunits, the first unit, second unit, together we call it a ribosome. And lysosome are like the garbage disposal of the cell. So they, any unwanted things in the cell, whether it's organelles that are no longer wanted by the cell or any other structures here and there in the cell that is not needed by the cell, the lysosome will deal with that. It removes those things from its surrounding, and it has digestive compartments, so it will digest those things and has its ways of removing it, which we will not go in depth to in this lecture. And centrioles, these are like the skeleton, they are the ones that organize microtubules, which are like the skeletal structure of the cell, what holds the structure of the cell together. And they also help locate what goes where, like where the nucleus is going to be, where the mitochondria is going to be. Okay, so now we have already studied the organelles. We have studied the difference between plant cell and animal cell, and we have looked through the examples of the cell, and we also understood why the structures don't have to be exactly the same, and why it's important that they all have their own unique structures relevant to their functions. So now let's look. Initially, we zoomed into a cell. We went inside the cell and we looked to the organelles, and we went into the nucleus of the cell. But now let's zoom out. Let's come out again. Let's come out of the cell. We already know that humans, as mentioned earlier, and animals and plants, we're all made out of cells. That is our basic unit, like how a wall is made out of bricks. Humans are made of cells. So let's focus on human cells, and we will look into tissues and organs. We'll see what tissues are, what organs are. So again, cells are the basic unit of all living things. They carry out life processes such as respiration, excretion, growth, and division. Now, what happens? You see, I drew this single cell here. What happens when cells get together? They form a tissue, but here's the catch. A group of similar cells that work together to perform a specific function is what we call a tissue. So a tissue has to be similar cells. Going back to the slides of the cells I showed you, So if we want a tissue, right, it has to be the same type of cell. It won't mix. A tissue is just one type. For example, the red blood cells. So many red blood cells together will form the connective tissue, for example. Muscle cell, only muscle cells will form the muscle tissue. Yeah, so it has to be the same. It won't, if it's like sperm cell and blood cell, no, then it's not a tissue because they're not similar cells and they do not have the same function. So just always keep this in mind that a tissue is composed of similar cells that work together to perform a specific function. So in humans, and in animals, we have 4 primary types of tissues. We have epithelial tissues, connective tissues, muscle tissues, and nervous tissues. These are the 4 primary types. There are a lot more. Example of epithelial would be the lining of organs, like the lining of the stomach, or the lining when you open your mouth and you, the inside of your mouth, the inside of your cheeks, those are made of epithelial tissues. Connective tissue would be blood or bone. Muscle tissue is like skeletal cells getting together, or cardiac cells forming a cardiac tissue. Cardiac is related to the heart, so the heart cells, the heart tissues. Nervous tissues, this would be related to the nervous system, so like brain, spinal cord. But these are the 4 main types, and the most important thing for you to know is that tissue is composed of similar cells, not different cells, similar cells. Okay, so what happens when tissues get together, when you have many tissues layering together? So when you have a tissue and another tissue, they don't have to be the same. Otherwise, it won't be a tissue. Organ. Wait. Okay, tissue has to be similar cells, but once the tissue is formed, different tissues come together to form an organ. So in this case, it has to be at least 2 different types of tissues that come and work together to perform a specific function. So tissues, similar tissues, for example, the connective tissues or the cardiac tissues, they come together, right? And then you have blood adding in there. Then it starts forming an organ like the heart. The heart is made of different types of tissues that work together to perform a specific function. So the heart is an organ. In the same way, our liver processes nutrients and toxins. But the liver is not made of just one type of tissues. It's different type of tissues that forms that organ liver. And same with the lungs. Lungs is made of different tissues that form that structure together, and then we call that structure an organ. An organ has a specific function as well. But the difference between an organ and a tissue is that tissue is made of cells, similar cells, but an organ, it is made of different types of tissues. It has to be at least 2 different types for it to be an organ. And then when you have a group of organs, different organs that come and work together, then you form a complex function, and that is what we call the system. So it's multiple organs. For example, your heart and your lungs, they are still involved. The lungs are what we breathe through, right? Oxygen goes in and out. And then the heart is where the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood is dealt with. So it's different organs coming together to form a complex function. And that is what we call a system. You have the digestive system. So you have the mouth. You have the organs here, the tongue. You have the stomach involved, the intestines involved. That is a system. It's a digestive system. Or the nervous system, where you have different organs coming together to perform a function. The brain, the spinal cord, the nerves. So all these different systems are what we will be studying in the next few lessons as well, and they're very interesting. So again, just to summarize the whole cell, tissue, organ, and system thingy, cells get together, similar cells get together to form tissues. So those cells have to be similar with similar structure, function, and then they form a tissue like blood cells. And then tissues, different types of tissues, or at least two different types. They have to be different tissues. When they get together to form a specific structure for specific function, that is what we call an organ. Like the heart is made of different types of tissues. And lastly is the system. When all the different organs start working together, it's like collaboration. It's like you do this, I will do this, you will do that, and it forms a system. So the nervous system has its own function. The brain is, the nerves are like, okay, we will detect the signals. The brain is like, we will help you analyze those signals and react to those stimuli, for example. So it's just as simple as that. It may not look that simple, but it's very simple. And for this lesson, I will be stopping here because these are all interconnected. So do you have any questions? I have put the resources and references here, so you should definitely go and check these out. I especially recommend that you study more about the organelles of the cells, like the mitochondria. And of course, I encourage you to be curious and find out what other cells are there in the body and figure out why they're not the same. Like, why is red blood cell disc-shaped? Why doesn't it have nucleus? Why does sperm cell have tails? Muscle cell, why do they look stretchable? Nerve cell, why is it structured like this? Yeah, so I would really encourage you to go and study all that. Okay, so for the next 5 minutes, I would like to see if any of you have any questions. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns, or do you want any tips or tricks on how you can go through the lesson on your own? No questions. Thanks, Cheyenne. Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question and you either reply with a yes or no in the chat. So the first question is, this will also help me take your attendance. Okay, if I'm going to state a statement, and if you think it's correct, you type yes in the chat. Okay? Okay. Tissues are made up of different types of cells. Yes or no? Good. Elizabeth, good. Okay, I'm going to repeat the questions. The question is, tissues are made of different types of cells. Correct, Elizabeth, that's good. Is that how I pronounce your name? N or in? N. N, correct. Your answer is correct. Sue, that's the correct answer. Jack. Oh, Jack. Okay, so the answer is no, tissues are not made of different types of cells. Let's go back to this. Tissues are made up of similar cells. Here. Again, I'm going to focus on this because back when I was in school, I would always get confused with this. A group of similar cells that work together to perform a specific function. So it's the same types of cell. It has similar structure and similar function. Okay, now you know. Okay, my next question is, let's see. The heart is an organ, yes or no? Elizabeth, good. Empire, yes, yes, yes. Okay, most of you got this right. Yes, it's an organ. Okay. Now I have a question. For this one, you will have to type your answer. Yes, Elizabeth, it's made of more than one type of tissues, so it's an organ. Okay, this question. So I made this statement. It wasn't in the slides, but I made this statement. I want to see how many of you caught it. Why doesn't red blood cell, why doesn't the red blood cell have a nucleus? So for this, you need to type out your answer. It's not a yes or no question. It's okay, Elizabeth. Yes, and you got that right. Yes, Sue, that's correct. Okay, so the answer is because red blood cells, their function is to carry oxygen, right? Red blood cell, they have to carry so blood's function is to carry oxygen around the cell, the red blood cell specifically. And it doesn't have a nucleus because it needs that capacity to carry more oxygen. If it had all these organelles like the nucleus, it wouldn't have enough space. Okay, why does the sperm cell have tails? That's the other question. You're welcome, Elizabeth. Correct, correct. Yes, and Elizabeth, yes, correct. Okay, because the tail helps them swim. When sperm cell has to reach the egg, it has to have a way to get there, right? So the tail is what helps them swim. Okay, so I'm happy to know that you guys heard that and you know the answers to this. And again, if you're struggling, don't worry, these slides will be uploaded so you can refer to them anytime. But yes, this part was interesting, wasn't it? That cells don't have to be exactly the same because each cell is unique to its function. Okay, I have one more question, tricky one. Animal cells don't have vacuoles. Yes or no? I'm just saying vacuoles, okay, not the central vacuole. Animal cells don't have vacuoles. Am I correct? Yes or no? And your answer is correct. Have. Okay, so yes, animal cells, they do have vacuoles. It's just that it's smaller. But for plant cell, you have a big one, like a big central vacuole. Correct, Dominic. Good. Okay, last question. But this one you have to type as well. Can you type for me which one comes first, which one comes last? Type it in order. Tissue, cell, system, organ. So four of these. Type it in order, start with the smallest. Elizabeth, good job. Yes, Cheyenne, well done. Sue, correct and correct. Correct. Okay, you've basically mastered the topic already. Cells form, similar cells form tissue, different, at least two different type of tissues form the organs, and different organs, when they work together to perform specific function, it forms a system. Well done, well done. Okay, now it's your turn. Do you, any of you have any questions regarding the topic today? Cell, tissue, organ system, organelles? You can just type it in the chat if you have any questions. Okay, so no more questions. You're welcome. Okay, thank you, Cheyenne. Okay, so if you have no more question, I will give you a rough overview of what we're expecting next. So we'll go back to the learning outcomes for today. So today we did cover the structure of a typical cell, and I can see you guys can label the structures. You just need time to memorize those structures. Define a cell. You already know what a cell is. You already know what a tissue is. You already know what an organ is and body system, and you even know examples of each of these. So in the next session, before we go into one of the systems, I will teach you the directional terms used in medicine, like when they have to perform sectioning. I will teach you what are the different terms they use, and you will also have a look at the overall body systems and organs. So you would be able to label the different organs within the human body cavities. We're focusing purely on humans in the next few sessions. And just to give you a rough overview, so if you want to prepare beforehand a bit for the next session, which I encourage you to do so that at least if you have questions, you can come prepared with those questions. So in the next class, we will be looking at the second learning outcome, which is the respiratory system, the system that involves respiration, oxygen, carbon dioxide, respiration, and we'll also be having a look at asthma. So if you're curious, you can go and have a read on it and study the topic so that when you come for the lesson, you're more aware of what I'm teaching, and also so that you have questions prepared to ask. Cheyenne, so these slides are being recorded, but I will check and see if I need to post them in the group as well. Okay? Yeah, but I can definitely prepare like different documents for you. And I can also send in worksheets to help you keep memory of the things. Yeah, so for the next session, I do encourage you to read up on respiratory system so that you are more familiar with the topic. And yes, the next lesson is on Friday. Yeah, so this coming Friday. Okay. You're welcome. Yeah, so if you have no more questions, you can leave the class already. Yes, the class, no, Jet. So this class will be today and on Fridays. Yeah, same time, 6 p.m. for me. I'm not sure if you all are in Malaysia as well, but it's Malaysian timing, 6 p.m. You're welcome, John, Cheyenne, Jack. Yeah, so if you have no more questions, you can feel free to leave the class now. Thank you. You're welcome in. Bye, and yeah, you may leave the class now.